Okay, it's time for paint. But before we get to paint, I needed to go over the model and check for any kind of dents and dings and issues of things that might have cropped up during the construction phase. I also needed to blend all the colors of the model together into one homogeneous color. Notice there was the gray, and then some of the black guide coat was still on, some of the red Bondo spot putty, and some white spot putty as well. So I'm applying a high build gray lacquer primer that's been thinned approximately 30%. And I'm spraying just enough to cover all that underlying colors and to give one homogeneous, continuous gray color over the whole model. Before I apply the color, I will be applying a two-part white primer, and that's because since I'm using yellow, I need a white primer underneath because yellow is notoriously difficult to cover up anything underneath. But I will get to that a little bit later. Alright, this coat of primer is on. I was trying to get it done before the rain hit. I just did get it done. I need to let it really flash off before I can take it inside. There are some ugly spots. Let's see if I can show you before it really starts raining. Overall it's not bad, but right here on both sides where the fabric kind of joined up with the balsa underneath, it's rough. You can hear it. Hear that roughness? I don't know if I can take some sandpaper to that or not to smooth it out. I'm hoping I can. The other side, same issue. Not quite as bad. This right here is actually where I went through the fabric, unfortunately. I don't know. Let me let this primer cure or dry or whatever lacquer primer does, and anyway, you can hear the roughness. So this is just really rough right here, but other than that, everything on the fuselage looks pretty good. The wing, it looks pretty decent. The area up around the fairing probably going to need a little bit of work in some spots. Other side's about the same. The cowl, it needed a little bit of primer, and it looks pretty good. I think I'm pretty happy with the way the cowl is going to turn out. I found a bunch of imperfections when I looked at it closer. You can see I kind of like the way these hatches, I made them so they kind of sit up a little bit proud of the surface, and that really helps to make them pop. It should look even better with some gloss paint. And then all of the other little bits and pieces, they're all okay. I'm not going to show you all this. I am going to paint this carbon fiber landing gear. I am going to paint it. It looks like to be a shiny steel or something like that on the real airplane. So I'm going to probably paint it a aluminum or a silver or something. So I primed it as well. And then a couple of little pieces. Same with the tail wheel. I'm going to paint it. It was also the carbon fiber, so I'm going to paint it as well, so it got primed also. For those that may be interested, let me show you how I have my rotisserie action, if you will, for the fuselage while painting it, priming it, and painting it. I did this a few models back. I think this is the third model that I've used this. But what I did was I stacked some plywood together, glued it all up together. It's about 1.5 inches thick, and then these are for, I'm using electric motors, and so I took the motor mount and then transferred the locations for the bolts drill the bolts, and they go all the way through the stacked plywood, and the bolts go into the T-nuts that I already have installed for the motor. And then this is a 22 millimeter tube, and it's just part of a, I guess you'd call it a clothes hanger or something like that. Anyway, these caps, they come off, and it's 22 millimeters, so I drilled a 22 millimeter hole all the way through. It does a real nice job. It's snug enough, the tube into the hole, that you can pretty much rotate it anywhere, and you see it holds. You don't have to have any other kind of clamps or anything. So that works out really well. Yeah, the primer was sanded back and all the little imperfections filled in. All these little white spots that you see, this is all body putty areas. Some of them were little pinholes, some of them were divots. Some of it was where I hadn't really filled in all the fiberglass. So they all got their spot putty and sanded back, and then I sanded everything back. Regarding this area that was so rough, it's sanded back. It's still slightly rougher than the open area. I'm hoping it won't be a problem. I did fill in those little areas that looked like I had sanded through the fabric. They all got some spot putty. So that's the fuselage wing. Turned out okay, just a few little spots. Again, mostly the belly pan area was the worst. Cal actually had quite a bit, quite a lot of work. I guess I just didn't do a good job the first time filling everything in, but it's ready for primer. I'm going to just put some rattle can primer on everything, and I'm sorry, rattle can primer on just the puttied parts, and see how everything looks at that point. Alright, I think today is going to be a good day to put the final coat of primer on. This primer is going to be a white primer as opposed to the gray primer. I never mentioned it, I don't think, but the gray primer is just a basic lacquer one-part primer. I usually thin it about 25% or so with just lacquer thinner. But this white primer, it's a two-part primer. It's 4-to-1. 4 parts of the white primer to 1 part of the hardener. And to make this as simple and easy on myself as possible, when I do this, I just use ladles. This ladle is a 25 millimeter volume ladle, so I just ladle in some primer and the hardener and some thinner, which I believe is just lacquer thinner as well, from what I can tell. And so I'm going to go with 300 mLs total, so I'll put in 8 ladles of the primer and then 2 ladles of the hardener and 2 ladles of the lacquer thinner, and we'll start there and see if I need to add more. The paint store owner, he said this should be thinned about 10 to 20%, but when I did my little practice run, I found 25% seemed to be a little bit better. After adding the hardener to the primer, I stirred for a good solid 2 minutes to make sure that hardener was thoroughly mixed in with the primer. Then I added the reducer and stirred for another 2 minutes before checking viscosity. Alright, so I stirred everything for a solid 2 minutes, so it's probably a total of 5 minutes now that the primer and the hardener have been stirred. A little bit about my gun. It's a gun that's made in Taiwan. I think it's a 1.2 millimeter tip, but I'm not sure. I forgot to ask the owner, and the box didn't have any information. It is a LVHP, low volume, high pressure gun, and pressure I'm shooting is about 20 psi. That yellow band is for this particular gun. Works really nice. I like it. I like it a lot. Anyway. Alright, I got everything primed. Everything's cleaned up, equipment's all cleaned up. The first spray I did for this fuselage, it was too thick. I thought I had a good mix, thinned out pretty well, but it ended up being pretty thick. So before I finished this fuselage, I went back and I thinned out, reduced the primer some more. Ended up making up a new batch, and I thinned that 50%, and that sprayed a lot better. I'm just pretty happy with the way that sprayed. Even this area right here is not any rougher than anything else. But this hole, I'm going to have to sand this back a little bit. I think it's a little bit on the thick side. The wing, I did the straight 50%. Reduced, and it's smoother. You can tell it's a lot smoother. So the store owner, he told me to reduce this primer 20%, and that may be for professional body shops. They might be able to handle that, and maybe cars need it thicker as well. I don't know, but for model airplanes, RC airplanes, and hobbyists like me, I think 50% is the way to go. The white primer's been sanded back. I used 320 grit sandpaper, used wet. And you can see I sanded it back just to where I could start to see the gray primer underneath. I don't need a lot of extra weight with a lot of primer, so I tried to get this white sanded back just to where I could start to see a little bit of the gray underneath. I hope that's not going to be a problem. All right, so now we're up to painting. So these are about the 4 best photos of the aircraft I want to replicate that I could find on the internet. I just made up a little storyboard, some foam core board. There we go. And I just glued the 4 pictures on. When I went to the store to get the paint, the only thing I had was a picture on in my phone. Well, a viewer graciously gave me the codes for the blue and the yellow for the actual aircraft. The blue is it's called Ford Blueprint And the yellow is a Maserati color, and it's called Giallo/Ginestra. So I took those codes to the paint store, and I talked to the owner, and I showed him the color codes and said, "Hey, can you match these color codes?" And he laughingly looked at me and said, "No. Only thing they can do is match colored chips that they have in the store." So he had this really nice blue. It's an automotive paint, and it's kind of like a pearl blue, I guess you call it. Not really a metallic, but more of a pearl. And so my friend and I, he had a couple different shades of it. My friend and I, we compared the color chips in the store with the photo of the airplane on the cell phone, and we found something that was about as close as we could find. Did that same with the yellow. He had 6 different colored chips for yellow, and we matched one. We picked the lightest one. We thought it would look about right. So we have, I got some white primer, and the other reason why I like this paint, come to find out that I can use the same white primer underneath the yellow and the blue. The blue, I was going to put a silver base coat, but the owner said, "Don't do that. Just go with white, and that'll give you the look that you want." So I took him for his word, and so that was good, because if I can paint the whole model white, I don't have to put on separate base coats. In other words, I don't have to put on the silver base for the blue and then the white primer for the yellow. I can just do all of it in white primer. So I got a liter of white primer and the hardener to go with it, a liter of yellow with the hardener, a liter of blue with the hardener. These 2 hardeners are actually the same thing, and the paint is the same thing, but I just got 2 anyway to have it on hand. I cannot tell you exactly what kind of paint this is. I can show you on the can, but unless you can read Chinese, I can't tell you. I don't know. I think it's an automotive paint, but specifically what kind of automotive paint, I don't know. It is a 2-part paint, but that's about all I can tell you. This is the thinner for the paint, and I think this is just basically lacquer thinner, because he said to use lacquer thinner to clean up. But you know, in case it's something besides just lacquer thinner, I got maybe this like really high quality lacquer thinner. Anyway, that's the thinner, and the paints, they're diluted or not diluted. They're mixed. 2 parts of paint, 1 part hardener, 1 part thinner. And he told me 3 to 5 minutes between coats. So that's good. The primer is a 4-to-1 hardener to the primer, and he said 10 to 20% reduction, but I found that it needs more like 25, maybe 30%. So I've done a little bit of testing. I used playing cards, and I sprayed up 4 sets. This is 3, the others are up here. And so I sprayed all 4 of them with the white primer, did the whole card in white primer. And then for some of them, I just did the blue over half of the primer. And the same, for the yellow, I did just half of the yellow over the primer. And that was to see how well the tape gives a paint line between the blue and the primer, and to see if the paint will peel up the primer. And I'm really happy to say that these paints are very tough. The paint did not peel up any primer or any paint when I peeled it away. So some of the other cards are blue over. For example, the yellow was painted over the white, and then the yellow was masked and blue was painted over the white primer. And then some of them had the blue paint, the whole card was painted yellow, and then the blue was painted over top of the yellow to see what kind of color change that might cause. So this is kind of the results. This is the blue just over the white primer. And then this one is the blue over the white primer where I had masked the yellow. And then this is blue over the over yellow. And I did that because of overspray. I'll spray the yellow first on the model, and then I'll come back and spray the blue over top. And I wanted to see how the blue or how the yellow overspray would affect the color of the blue. And you should be able to see there is a difference. This is the lighter blue. This is a little bit darker. And then the blue with the yellow is even more darker. So this is the color blue that I want. This is the shade that I want. So that means I'm going to have to, after I spray the yellow, I'm going to have to either sand away any overspray, or I'm going to have to actually mask to hide the white primer when I spray the yellow, so that I have nothing but white primer for the blue to go over. One good thing about that yellow primer, the white primer, is it only took 2 coats to cover this card up. You can't see any of the, well, no, it's a joker. You can't see the decoration on the back side of the card. So the white primer does a great job of covering up with only 2 coats. So I'm hoping that'll help keep the weight down. I know automotive paint can be heavy, and I'm afraid this is going to be heavy, but if I can just do 2 coats of primer, and these are just 2 coats of the yellow and the blue. So if I can get by with just 4 coats total, I mean, that'll be great. So the first thing to do is to start marking out the location on my fuselage and my wing where all my little lines are going to go, and start masking up. Alright, it's been about 25 minutes or so since I painted it. I gave it 2 coats, and in the meantime I've cleaned out my brush, airbrush or air gun. 2 coats, and it seems to have done a pretty good job with it as far as coverage goes. The one thing that I'm not real thrilled about, it's not bad, but when I put my really close-up glasses on, there is a little bit of orange peel that has developed. Again, this is a new paint for me. First time I've used it, I was hoping it would flow out a little bit better. I like the artist acrylics because I don't get orange peel with those paints, but unfortunately those paints are not gloss, and I didn't want to put a gloss clear coat on. So I'll see if I can figure out why I've got this little bit of orange peel and fix it when I do the top. That's why I did the bottom first. I always do the bottom first, so if I have issues like this, hopefully I can correct them before I do the top. You notice that I covered the horizontal stab bottom part. I want to do the horizontal stab and the fuselage all at one time. So normally I like to pull my paint masks as soon as I finish painting. I feel I get a little bit better edge if the paint is still a little bit pliable. I'm going to try it here. Again, I don't know about this paint. I don't know if it's going to work with this paint or not. So I'm just going to do a test, try to pull a little bit and see what happens with the paint. Go from there. Alright, well this is a good enough test for now. It looks like it's doing really well. I'm not seeing any spots where the paint edge is being pulled up. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this off camera, and I'll show you when I'm done. All the masking, it came off cleanly. I'm pretty happy about that. Let's touch up. This is a very high quality paint, I can tell. I just wish I could figure out now about the orange peel. Usually I think orange peel is when there's a problem in the paint itself. Either it's not reduced correctly, which is probably the case. The hardener that I'm using was a hardener that's designed for 20 to 30 degrees centigrade temperature, and it's probably right at 30 degrees right now, and it's really humid. So the combination of the temperature and the humidity is probably affecting it somewhat. Don't know if there's anything I can do about that. The last thing is the color. To me, this yellow seems a little bit too light colored, more like a lemon yellow or something. Maybe that's because of the backdrop of the white primer, or maybe when I put the blue on, it's going to change the hue of the color, hue of the yellow a little bit. I don't know, we'll see. But right now it just seems a little bit too bright to me, too light colored. Alright, continuing to paint the fuselage. I have masked off the areas that are going to get blue, and some of this masking was a little tough because some of these strips get pretty small as it goes toward the end of the fuselage. But fuselage is ready. Same with the wing. Mask the areas that are going to get blue. And the cowl just gets a little bit. When I masked this, I actually put the cowl on the fuselage, and I masked everything up, so hopefully it'll all be in one straight line. But I will paint the cowl separately, make it a little bit easier. I actually, with the fuselage, I'm extending the yellow all the way to the front, even though the cowl comes to right about here. I'm going to go ahead and paint everything out to the front. I mentioned before that when I painted the wing, the bottom of the wing, and a little bit on the bottom of the fuselage, that this yellow had a little bit of orange peel to it. And I've given it a lot of thought, and I think what may have happened is that I didn't wait long enough when I painted the first coat, allowing the solvent to flash off before painting the second coat. And I think the second coat got caught up a little bit, and the first coat's still flashing, and I think that may have caused the orange peel. I feel pretty good about the viscosity of the paint. It strains easily through my strainer, and it does paint nicely. I painted a glass jar, and it's nice and smooth, so I think the viscosity is okay. So I think I need to wait longer this time. I think I was waited about 4 minutes the first time. The paint store guy told me to wait 3 to 5 minutes between coats. So I'm going to wait longer this time. Hopefully that helps with the orange peel. And I'm also going to try one of the things when I was painting before. I kind of painted at a little bit of an angle. That's kind of the way I do it. But this time I think I'm going to try to paint a little more straight down. So I'm going to rotate the fuselage, try to get more of a direct angle, 90-degree angle to the surface when I paint.
Notice that I'm still angling the paint gun here. I did a pretty good job with the fuselage, keeping it more perpendicular, but here I'm still angling it. And I think that's causing the problem in that the paint that's further away from the paint gun is drying a little faster than the main body of paint, and that's preventing the paint from flowing out, causing the orange peel.
Alright, it's been about 10 minutes or so since I sprayed the fuselage. Just kind of looking at it. This area right here I'm not going to worry about because the cowl is going to cover that. But moving along, everything looks pretty good. This area right here is going to need a little bit of touch up. I don't want to touch it because it's still a little bit tacky, but right here, and you see the little darker areas. That's where that dark gray primer showing through. I need to add a little bit here, and basically this whole area, I guess I didn't quite get enough. My little hatch, it's going to need a little extra spray for my simulated screw heads. The vertical fin, basically it needs another spray. That dark gray primer showing through. You know, I tried to get by without spraying over the dark gray primer, hoping the yellow would cover it. Of course, that was silly of me because yellow doesn't cover hardly anything. There's a little spot right there. It does quite well with the white primer, so yeah, I'm not going to be able to get away with trying to cheat. I'll have to, next time I'll just have to go over all of the areas that have the dark gray. Matter of fact, I might not even use that dark gray primer anymore. Now this area will be seen. It's outside of the cowl, so I'll have to spray that as well. This I'm not going to worry about. So actually, as far as like the orange peel goes, fuselage did really well. I don't know if maybe I can try to take a still picture and show you that way. It did really well. I'm pretty happy with it. The wing is still showing some signs of orange peel, but unfortunately it is still showing signs of orange peel. Not bad, not really bad, but not the glass smooth surface I would like to have. I guess I just need to do better preparation, and then the flight controls and flaps and slats, I think they're pretty well. That's one coat. That's covering pretty well. So anyway, so that's all done. I think let's take a quick look at the rudder. How did that seemed to have turned out okay. Yeah, it's not too awfully bad. The bottom of the rudder looks kind of bad, doesn't it? Yeah. All right. I think I need to do the control horns. One more spray to the control horns. But other than that, I think the rudder is. As far as the paint goes, the rudder's going to be okay as is. So I got a single coat on that. So most things a single coat. Now it's time. It's been enough time. Let me go back and add some touch-up spots. And this is what it looks like with the tape pulled. The surface is not perfect, but it doesn't look too bad. I can only really see the imperfections when I have my good glasses on. And the flight controls. The painted the top of the flight controls, and the top is all yellow. The white and the yellow that you see, that's actually the bottom, and the white becomes the blue. Not much change with the rudder. Just a little bit of masking for the blue. All right, speaking of blue, that's next.